You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Its purpose is to dissect and discuss horror films, both old and new. As we are kind of rolling along in our sixth season of the current Surgeons of Horror podcast, we're going back to look at one of the early directors that we started off with when we began this whole thing, and that's Mr. Wes Craven. We've just spoken about A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was one of, obviously, his highlights of his career. And we are kind of dubbing this season the Wes Craven Nightmare years. So kind of going from A Nightmare on Elm Street basically up to A New Nightmare. And all that comes in between, and this one being the first one of those, which was a made-for-television movie called Chiller. But before we dissect and discuss, I should probably introduce myself as a host of the Surgeons of Horror podcast. My name is Saul Muerte, and joining me to discuss this film is Anthony Big Cheesy. Welcome aboard, Ant.
Hello. You know what I'm going to say next?
Go on, what?
Chiller, chiller, man.
Yeah. So it's not that one, but Yep. So when before we kind of start talking about this, and I normally ask about the movie itself, but I just want to throw back to last season, because the last season we spoke about Wes Craven in our early years discussions of his career. The last movie we spoke on was, I believe, was Invitation to Hell, or From Hell, one of those two. And it was, and I'm pretty sure you were in that conversation from memory. But it was it was Wes Craven's first real made-for-TV movie.
Oh, is that the one with the set on a ranch or something? And is that the girl who's a horse rider or some shit like that? No.
That was see. I wonder why. Yeah, you're right. That probably may have fallen into made-for-TV land. Actually, yeah, that was the Summer of Fear one.
Yes,
with
witches.
Linda Blair from Exorcist. And it was you're right. About. Okay, so there was another one that kind of came right. It was kind of Wes Craven had been kind of, despite success with Last House on the Left and The Hills Have Eyes, was still kind of getting labelled with being typecast with being a horror movie director, but not just a horror movie director, a horror movie director who works on a low budget. And so these are the kind of things that he was getting sent. And in the wake of the success of A Nightmare on Elm Street, he was kind of hoping that potentially would open up doors for him. Obviously, he would still get labelled with this typecasting for quite a series of time afterwards. And he was trying to break out of that cycle and basically kind of he liked comedy and satire, which I think obviously is evident by the time Scream comes around, that and he was able to kind of marry the two when it came to that point in his career. But at this stage of time, he was still getting sent scripts, and he basically would I think in his words said he'd either just go mad, just kind of reading all these scripts, or just kind of pick one and go, right, what can I do to work with this, just to kind of keep moving forward. And this is where Chiller kind of lands us, essentially. This is a point where straight off the back of doing A Nightmare on Elm Street, he gets this kind of chance to do a made-for-TV movie. Now, you and I have watched this on a DVD, which... let's be fair, isn't the best quality. It feels like it's been recorded straight off a TV onto VHS and then dumped across onto DVD. And the audio is really hard to hear certain points of it because of the dodginess of the recording. But it seems like that's the only kind of copy that I could at least get my hands on. And so we are kind of, and I guess I'm prefacing this by to the listeners out there, is that basically, like, we didn't have a very good. Well, it was a hard time to watch this, despite of the low budget quality of the movie itself, let alone the low budget quality of the actual video visuals and audio components for us to be able to enjoy this movie or not. But before we get into that, I guess the question is, had you ever heard of this movie before?
No, I thought we'd gone through all of his. How many movies has he made that nobody knows about? How many TV movies has he done?
There are a few, because were you the one that was on the Incubus one, Deadly Blessing, with Sharon Stone's first feature? Was that you, or did I do that with someone else?
I think you did that with someone else.
Yeah. So that was kind of, I only mentioned that because I kind of liked it. But also, Wes Craven said it's probably the least known of his movies that he kind of likes too. So
right.
At the time. So, and it had a lot going for that one. So yeah, there are a couple that kind of dot along, especially around this time frame too. So we're going to be kind of, as I said, talking through the nightmare years, through his career, which. I think the next one up we've got is Deadly Friend, after this one, which is again another made-for-TV kind of film. And then we get The Serpent and the Rainbow, which had a bit of a following of itself. And then another made-for-TV one called Shocker. Before we did, that one's still to come. And then we get The People Under the Stairs, which is probably more kind of moving into movies that he started becoming known for. And then he does the return to A Nightmare on Elm Street with Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
So is Shocker the one with the android? Or am I thinking something completely different?
No, Shocker from memory was the prisoner who gets on the electric chair and then.
Did he do the robot one? Like a little robot, and he ends up. I don't know. It's something my cousin used to love watching. It was running about the Nightmare on Elm Street years, and it stars the boy from this TV series where he plays a genius.
Yes.
And then he ends up doing his first feature film, which is a schlock horror. I thought it was Wes Craven. I could be wrong. It's about a girl he likes. He dies, and she ends up being. He puts her in a killer robot's body. I don't know, something really dumb.
Oh my god, sounds awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know it though.
Yeah, so probably not then. No, I'd never heard of this, but there's one particular scene which struck the memory chord with me. So I may have seen it as a trailer as a kid.
Yeah, sure.
Because the weird thing with me and with Wes, you just assume, because Nightmare on Elm Street was like one of the defining movies of the 80s.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of movies in the 80s were schlock horror. Became huge because of the VHS boom. We talked about this with Simon Chapman.
Yes.
And like Nightmare on Elm Street is right up there as like iconic in terms of those sort of horror films and horror films in general. So you assume after a big success like that, you go on as a director to doing bigger and better things. But I didn't know that he basically has a dip of kind of B grade, C grade films, really.
Yes.
Until he gets the second Nightmare film. So this is interesting. You think that once you have a hit on your hands in Hollywood, you can start writing your own checks, really, as a filmmaker.
Yeah. There was like I'm pulling this from a book that I've been reading, or have been reading on and off, called The Man and His Nightmares, Wes Craven, and it's by John Woolley. And it essentially kind of delves into all of his films, like little snippets along the way. And it does say that it takes a quote from The Inquirer. At the time, with an interview with Wes Craven, and it kind of says, it's similar to what I was just saying a minute ago, but he was trying to join in the club, so to speak. So people that had made horror movies but had gone on to greater success, so like John Carpenter, Brian De Palma, and even Sean Cunningham, who he worked with on Last House on the Left, by that point was kind of considered, part of that club. But he was always kind of skirting on the periphery, and he was hoping that A Nightmare on Elm Street would be that kind of breakthrough moment. And I guess it did. but it just it still took a while for him to really kind of cement himself before it got to that stage, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny. That's so weird.
Yeah. So
Spielberg.
Go on. Go on.
Weird. No, because I mean, you do. I mean, the best filmmakers I like cut their teeth in television anyway.
Yes,
because you just learn by doing. And Spielberg is one of those guys. And Craven, when you tell me, oh, he's done a lot of TV movies, I thought, okay, that's him cutting his teeth, and then he starts doing the big feature films, and then his career takes off. But he doesn't go along that linear path. He does big hit and goes backwards, goes forwards, goes backwards. It's kind of weird. Yeah, strange.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I can understand why he'd feel a bit bitter about that.
yes, indeed. So speaking of, let's just start nighting through. So that was kind of the background of where he was at and how he was feeling at the time. Let's take a look at the movie and dissect it if we can. And I reckon we could probably kind of nut through the plot line fairly quickly because it is a fairly basic plot line. And it does feel like TV land straight off the bat when we kind of start opening this up. We're in this kind of cryogenic lab where there's a security guard, and it just was it me or did this seem really drawn out, this sequence, like where he's having a coffee and he keeps looking out and
the copy. I mean, the copy I saw, which the copy you lent me, I had to have the sound turned down anyway.
Okay.
For reasons I won't go into, but I literally got up. I played it, got up to get a cup of tea, came back, and the scene's still going.
Yes.
Has this thing where some guy's trying to scare the security guard, wearing garbage bags on his feet. I don't know why. And then he scares the guy. It's another security guard, and it's that classic, oh, what do you do? It's a misdirect. Yeah. It's not so scary. And they change shift, and this new security guard takes over, and this cryogenic tubes. And you realize that the whole place is full of cryogenically frozen people, a la Walt Disney.
Yes. And
one of the tubes breaks down. And they're like, "Oh shit, what do we do?" And again, I'm watching this with the sound mostly turned down, so I'm getting a lot of, It's surprising how much you can learn from just watching with the sound turned down on certain movies. I still don't know if that means the movie's put together really well or put together really badly. I'm still figuring that out. But the impression I got with the sound turned down is that the tube that's malfunctioning, they have to revive the guy or he's going to die. And then it cuts to a hospital, and the surgeon is talking to this older woman who's the woman from Poltergeist.
Yeah.
And she's.
I'll cut in there. So she plays. Sorry, mine's gone blank. She plays Dr. Lesh in Poltergeist.
Yes.
She's played by Beatrice Straight. Is her name.
The most irresponsible woman of her time, or age, whatever the line is.
Yes.
And so the doctors are talking to her about the guy in the tube. I thought it was her husband, then I realized no, she's too old. It's her son.
Yeah.
And then she gives him permission to revive him. So I had to look up on Wikipedia what was going on. Basically, he died of something back in the 70s.
Yes.
Because he's been frozen for 10 years. It's 1985.
Yes.
But they can now cure it. So she's like, yes, cure him now, which is the whole theory behind cryogenic freezing when it was a craze and a fad.
Yeah.
Which was you put you on ice, whatever it is that was killing you can hopefully be cured in the 21st century or whatever.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, the problem with cryogenic freezing as an actual science is that it does that. It actually freezes the pathways to your brain. And once that's all crystallized, that's effectively fucked. It's useless.
Yes.
So you can't revive somebody who's frozen, really. I mean, I've done a little bit of research into this because I'm fascinated by hypersleep as a science fiction.
Yeah. I thought you would.
As you know.
Yes.
And that's the problem with it. You can't just you can slow, like bears slow their metabolism down so they don't need to basically function as quickly as possible. So that's what draws out their lifespan. But they don't freeze themselves. They literally sleep. And that's why they need to be in a cave where they can be protected from the elements and so on and so forth. But when they try and replicate that scientifically, human beings can't do that. So you freeze them. But the problem with freezing is that's it. You freeze. It's like where you can't refreeze certain foods in the microwave because once you refreeze them again, the molecular bombs break down and like that. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. That means Walt Disney cut his head off for no reason whatsoever. But yeah, so that's what they revived this guy, who's her son, and she's a billionaire woman, obviously, because she can afford this. Frozen. Next thing I know, he's in a hospital bed, and some nurse is like, what's she doing? She's trying to massage his muscles or some shit.
Yeah. That's right.
And then he wakes up, and this is the other big this bit here. Then this big sci-fi thing happens
With his
where his face starts to the cheeks and the muscles on his face start to pull up. And this is the thing. I think that struck a chord in me. I remember seeing that, I think, in the trailer, and I think that's what it was like as a kid, thinking, oh, okay, I saw that in the trailer. I didn't tell me. Anyway, here's the thing with Hollywood. Yeah. Whenever a major special effect achievement is achieved in a certain film, like a special effect breakthrough is achieved in a film, other films will duplicate it for no reason whatsoever. So when I think it was American Werewolf in London discovered that if you put prosthetics on a person's face and then puff them up because they're like basically air bladders, it makes your face expand, and that gives the illusion that your face is changing. Yes. And which is perfect for a werewolf film when the guy's face changes into a werewolf. It literally elongates and expands into the shape of a werewolf, which it really doesn't. It actually just muscles on the face, just literally your cheeks and your forehead just expands. Yes. That looks freaky because we hadn't seen that before. And then they cut away to somebody reacting to that, and then they cut back to another face, which is obviously had more prosthetics attached on. So as special effects goes, it's cheap. It's just literally putting latex on somebody's face and putting a tube underneath it so it pumps up air. Yes. But it was such a breakthrough sort of look at the time. So many films copied it, and this is one of them, obviously, as a transformation effect. So whenever a character transforms, even if you don't really need it, like this effect was really prevalent in the 80s. The next big effect that was like that was morphing, digital morphing. Digital morphing came into effect. Fucking every show, every movie had it. Because it blew everybody away just how you could smoothly transition one face into another. Yes. And I remember fucking Saving Private Ryan, when the old guy literally digitally transmorphs into when Matt Damon, digitally transforms into the old guy at the end. There's no reason for him to physically morph into the guy. They just did it because he could. Yes. The opening credits to Roseanne, all the cast members literally morphed in from the younger cells into the older cells in the opening credits because that technology was available. Why would you have characters morphing into the older cells in an opening credits sitcom? But that was it. That was the special effect of the day that everybody was using. So that was the only thing I took away from that was that this guy's face just like expands, and his cheeks expands and his forehead for no reason other than it looks freaky. And the girl freaks out and his eyes open and they're really odd eyes.
The really odd eyes thing, that's right. Yeah. And then the other assistant comes in and goes, "What's going on?" and looks nothing. It's just
nothing. So I thought, not knowing anything about the film, I thought that nurse was going to be the female lead, but it wasn't. She was just some girl be scared.
Some girl, yeah. So with that in mind, the guy in question, the rich guy, Miles, he's played by Michael Beck, who is
Xanadu.
Oh, see, that wasn't the first one I was going to say. I was going to go Warriors.
All the Warriors and Xanadu.
Come on, play. That isn't.
Play.
That's not his character, though. Obviously, he plays Swanee or Swan.
One of the dudes.
Yeah. One of the dudes.
That's
who I recognise him from. But yeah, he's also in Xanadu, along with that as well, which is kind of cool. Or not, depending on which way you want to look at it. So he kind of wakes up, and so with him kind of being kind of reawakened, he automatically wants to take over the company business, which he was running at the time.
What was his dad running?
His dad had run it, who's now passed away, and so some other old dude who's kind of been running the ship for a little while. And basically Miles kind of comes back and he basically just says he wants to strip it right down and just anything that it isn't needed to kind of make it profitable, essentially.
Yeah, he's a douche.
Yeah. So but this kind of taps into basically this is the underlying theme that runs through it. That this is kind of a comment on the 1980s. I'm trying to remember what year this came out now.
85.
85, so mid-1980s. So the Reagan kind of era, and how greed is good kind of concept. Just to coin the phrase from Wall Street. And that money and power is everything. So that's kind of what we're talking about here in the world that Miles is trying to create, and become this kind of egomaniac kind of character that's just hell bent on money and profit.
First thing that I also noticed too is when he gets home, and again I'm watching with the sound turned down.
Yeah,
he gets home, and of course, not all is right with him, but nobody knows at this point because he's still a bit. He's in a wheelchair. He's still a bit dazed about what's happened because he's just come back from the dead.
Yeah,
and of course, one person in the entire family, or one creature in the entire family that suss out straight away he's not right is the dog.
The dog.
The Doberman just doesn't like him. Starts yapping and. Because animals always sense something that we can't sense.
Yeah.
They're our guardians. You also introduced at this point to a stepsister.
Yes.
And so I recognize her from certain things. I think she was like a teenage screen queen.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah, you're right on the money. Her name's Jill Sholin, but she,
yes.
2 years after this, made a name for herself as Stephanie Main in The Stepfather.
Okay.
Which kind of launched her, and then after that she went popular a couple of other stuff, including Phantom of the Opera, where she plays the Christine lady opposite Robert England.
Yeah, there you go.
At the time.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other stuff, which kind of, as I said, kind of labelled her as a bit of a screen queen in her own right. But she's very kind of quiet in this. She's not. She's other than right towards the very end, she doesn't really offer much other than being the object of Miles's gaze. Because
again, I sound turned down. I thought they were brother and sister, which I thought, that's kind of edgy. He's suddenly perving on his sister.
Yes.
Can I actually just check? Here's the thing. My wife and stepdaughter love Lucifer, that TV series Lucifer.
Oh yeah.
And I watch it in the corner of my eye when I got it playing, and I get why it's popular. It's it's got a certain market in mind, which is women who love that sort of stuff, like Amy Hutton, who we're friends of, and is a massive Supernatural fan.
Hi Amy.
As soon as I saw it, hi Amy, I thought, I bet you Amy's gonna love this, and she does. She likes it too. Because I kind of get the idea. He's literally the ultimate bad boy.
Yes.
Sort of trying to seek redemption. Because the whole thing I guess you forget about Satan is that he is the devil, but he is an angel.
Yes.
First and foremost, he was the favored son, blah blah blah. And so the way they pitch him in this TV series is that he just questions. He questions the one being you can't question, which is God.
Yeah.
But he does, as a son does. Like, he just questions his motivation and calls him out on the way he behaves. Like, God works in mysterious ways, and his thing is like, no, you're just being a douche. So on and so forth. Anyway, the whole thing about it is that it's a PG TV show. It's a mainstream TV show. So how do you show the devil being the devil without completely watering down what he does?
Yeah.
So the most he does, he owns a nightclub. He fucks. But he fucks. He just fucks. That's his thing. Because he's going this whole thing where he works with a detective and he solves crimes and blah blah blah. But in the meantime, he literally fucks anything in a skirt. But the most edgiest thing they've done is they had to interrogate all the women that he's ever fucked with for one of the cases that he was working on, and one of them was a guy.
Okay.
One was a guy, which he makes a fun couple one-liners about. Like, he openly admits, okay, he fucks guys, but that's as edgy as it gets, right?
Yeah.
Because at one point, his mother, they've had a character who's his mother. She comes to Earth, right? And then she takes over the body of this really attractive lawyer woman, and then because she's clueless, she's never been in the human body before, she walks around naked, and so he freaks out, and he says, like, mother, you can't be naked and stuff like that, and people, because she's young, assume that they're together. And he's like really repulsed at the fact that he thinks I'm with my mother. I'm like, well, hang on. If you're Satan and you're everything that is anti-Christian, anti-God, like in all the things you've heard, all the really edgy movies, he does really horrible things.
Yeah.
Shouldn't incest be one of them to upset God? Like you know what I'm saying? He should be, if he's supposed to be this edgy guy who does everything, he should do everything. Like I'm talking really messed up stuff, right? Because he's supposed to be Satan.
Yeah.
And that's what this really interesting thing about these sort of movies when this character is supposed to be really evil. Because I remember that the character in the Amityville movie, the prequel Amityville movie, is that he ends up seducing his sister because that was going to hurt God the most.
Yes.
And that's really edgy, right? That's really, and so again with this, when I saw this, I'm thinking, they're going to make him because he has no soul, because that's the whole gist of it. They're bringing him back to life. He doesn't have a soul, which is why he behaves. Like, is he going to do something like hit on his own sister or whatever, trying to seduce her? So I thought, okay, that's kind of edgy, but then I had the sound turned down, so I assumed that's what was going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, yes, it's messed up, but isn't that kind of the point? Yeah. Which is always a problem when you try to make an evil character be approachable or redeemable, is that they've done irredeemable things, especially in the case of Satan or a guy. Like Dexter was a classic conundrum for me too. Like Dexter was this amazing character killing serial killers, but a lot of people who had problems with it, what raised a decent point, is that he's still a serial killer. And so how can you glorify a lead character who does that? Which is interesting. Which I'm not making a judgment one way or the other. I'm just thinking it's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Because it's a good point. But at the same time, he's killing serial killers, but delving into their psyche, does that justify it? I don't know. I really don't know. On another level, you could talk about the Big Bang Theory, right? Because they glorified the character of Sheldon, right? Being somebody who effectively has Asperger's, whatever it is.
Yes.
But to me, I found that sitcom justified him behaving really horribly to his friends for seasons on end.
Yeah.
And they all accommodate him. They all walk in eggshells around him. And I think that was... It got to the point where it was getting really annoying for me as a fan of that show.
Yeah.
Because they justified his terrible behavior time and again. So that went not too much the other way, I thought.
And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Like, I mean, both we're talking about the subject of stuff that's made for TV, and I guess Dexter's slightly a bit of an exception because it had license to go areas that the other kind of components that we're talking about probably wouldn't have. But even so, you're still trying to make somebody who's essentially got evil in them likable. But when we coming back to Chiller, like, you know, it's a TV movie and you can't escape that. And not only is it a TV movie, it's a TV movie born from the 80s. You watch it and it feels like it should stay in the 80s and not beyond that. So it's trapped within a lot of within its own kind of confinement, you know, to be accessible for the medium in which it's being produced for. So we're always going to struggle with that if you're a devout horror fans or devout kind of movie lovers that want something edgy, something different. When you're in that kind of environment, there are exceptions to the rule. I mean, like, I found True Blood was a bit like that as well, a little bit. Like, I got a bit over the fact that everybody had to have something a little bit different about them. I wanted somebody to be a token normal in it. Wasn't, and that's why I got a bit lost within that series. Going, but who as an audience are we supposed to click with? And be just Joe Blogs, who happens to be.
I found that with Friends. When Friends came on, when they first started, if you look at the pilot episode, Joey's quite normal, right?
Yes.
And then they made the decision from the second episode onwards, he's an idiot. On the first episode, he says very articulate things. He contributes to the conversation. He understands things. And then from episode 2 or 3 onwards, he's a moron. That's his trope. Yeah. And then you realized, they all have a thing bar Monica. And there was like episode 5 or 6, they gave Monica the neat freak thing.
Yeah.
And I remember even as a kid when I watched that, I was thinking, don't do that, because suddenly they've all got a thing.
Yes.
Whereas I think you needed one there had to be the normal one, that was your way in.
Yeah,
and then literally Monica's neat freak thing became really one dimensional.
Yeah,
really.
that's right. It really did. Yeah, I remember.
And it comes out of nowhere. Up to that point, she is quite a reasonable, normal person. She's got. Yeah.
I wonder if, like, I mean, there's a couple of things going on with that. But one, the writers and producers fear characters becoming wallpaper, and also when it comes to TV series in particular, like, they're looking for longevity, so you kind of start wrangling as much of different angles and perspectives to people as possible to kind of draw them out a little bit longer. But like I just find the what was I going to say with that too, with the wallpaper comment. I feel like you do need to have. Oh, that's right. I know what I was going to say now. It's like the reason why, and I'm talking from a comedy perspective, but the reason why the straight man against the funny man routine always worked. So like Morecambe and Wise and oh god, my mind's just gone blank now.
Shane and Schuster. Bob Hope and
Bob Hope. Yeah. That's right. And you need that kind of for the comedy to bounce off the normal. I say, to work, and so so that I feel like you need that, and it's the same with, like, again going back to True Blood, the same kind of thing. You needed somebody to be that normal human character for all these fantastical creatures and elements to bounce off and have their reaction to that. Which was kind of missing for me. But yeah, going back to Chiller. So let's pick up with the dog, because that's a comedy.
Yeah, yes.
There's our title, right? Because essentially, yes, the dog's the one that kind of senses it. The dog breaks into the house.
He actually breaks into the house.
Yeah.
This is why I'll fucking sort this. I'm going to sort this. I'm like, this is above and beyond for a dog. Usually, like, in those sort of scenes, the dog goes, bark, 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 bark. They tell the dog to be quiet. The dog goes, well, fine, fuck you, I've done my bit. Right, I'll just keep going doing what I'm doing. But this dog is, like, proactive.
It is.
I'll not let this demon into my house.
It's a bit
and he jumps a fence.
He jumps a fence. He pulls out a blowtorch to kind of cut.
He literally opens he gets a key and he fucking opens the lock and the shit.
Yeah, awesome.
What the fuck?
So go on. Sorry.
That's right. The door had a door. I just had the door had a door, doggy door.
He did.
But he uses a lock. He opens the key. He pulls the door handle. And you see the doggy door. I'm like, what the hell? Anyway, that's all.
Yeah. That's right. So, there's a couple of things going on here too that I just want to add. One is that obviously I felt, having watched Wes Craven's earlier stuff, that this is kind of almost a bit of a nod to The Hills Have Eyes and the dog in that, because the dog is the hero. Essentially, the dog is the hero in that movie.
Right.
And there's a lot of the POV shots from the dog's point of view, which is also used here. And so
it is. Yeah.
And it's almost like this is a red herring moment, because you're going, oh, what's going to happen here? Is is the dog going to, is he tapping into like old stuff that Craven's worked on? And he kind of sneaks into the bedroom, jumps up to kind of maul this master, as it were. And the bed's empty, and out of the blue comes Miles with a big sheet, wraps it round him, and how does he basically smothers him to death, essentially.
Smothers the dog, which is not going to happen, because the dog's going to wriggle free of that shit.
Yeah, right.
I thought he was going to do the neck snapping thing. I don't know. But that was it. And so obviously he gets rid of the dog.
Yeah.
Which taps into your theory that you have about these sort of films, that the dog is the guardian of the family. So you got to get rid of the guardian of the family.
Exactly, yeah.
They're done. So the next day, the sister wakes up, wears the dog, goes into the backyard, finds the housekeeper or the groundskeeper.
Yes.
Just calling groundskeeper Willie. And then he tells her something. But again, I had the sound turned down. But basically, from her reaction, I'm guessing he told her the dog died. But how did the dog die?
Yeah. Dog's dead, dude. Yeah.
Did he say
Sorry, what?
Did he say it died from a heart attack or some shit? What?
I can't remember I honestly can't remember. That's how attacked I was with movie. I don't remember him saying anything. I thought it was like he'd run away. They kind of.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. But I could be wrong with that. As I said, it kind of went over my head. Not over my head. My head was well and truly over it. But yeah. So, and at this point, like, as far as like the next kind of section of the movie, there's not a lot of stuff happening other than Miles exerting some power play. And there's that one bit where he has a confrontation with the guy, the old guy that had been running the business for the family. And then he basically just kind of runs away from him up a stairwell.
It kills him in the lamest way possible.
Yeah, it's so shit. It's so shit. And
it's so shit. Like it's low budget because the guy has a heart attack.
Yeah. And you're just like, well, I don't know.
It's really shit. Like it's not even sinister. It's like the guy is like, don't follow him. If your heart's having trouble walking up 32 flights of stairs, just go, I'll fucking talk to you when you come down. Why did you chase after him?
I know.
It's like, I remember Scream, which is not the Wes Craven one, actually. Scream, the second Scream.
The second one.
The killer was Roseanne's sister in Roseanne.
Yeah.
And she's the mother of the first killer. And to me, it took me out of the movie because when it's revealed that she's the killer, she chases after Sydney with a gun.
Yes.
And to me, the whole point of Scream is why Scream is so visceral is that the killer uses a knife.
Yeah.
He cuts throats and he stabs you with it. And that's a very visceral, hands-on way to kill somebody. And when the final killer is a woman with a gun, and I get it because she's physically not as strong as she's the same strength level as Sydney. Strength level? That sounds very Dungeons and Dragons. But in order to overpower Sydney, she couldn't use a knife. She needed to use a gun. But once you bring a gun into a horror slasher flick, for me it just removes you from the violence of it all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because gun is something you associate with pop films, crime films, not slasher films. Yeah, and a gun too, which is the problem with guns, is that it's an easy way to kill somebody. Whereas these sort of films, you want an elaborate way, a clever way, or a horrific way to kill somebody. That's the point of these slasher films.
That's right.
Yeah. So to make him have a heart attack is like, what the fuck? Yeah. At least push him over the edge. Maybe, I don't know.
I thought that's what it was going to come to because he kept going up and up the stairs. I thought, is he going to end up getting to the top and then pushing him over?
Yeah.
No, just fucking heart attack. And so at that point on, I went, this is going to be painful.
Yeah. Do you have money in the budget to push him over the ledge? No, we don't. Okay. In that case, new writing, new page. He dies of a heart attack. Yeah. Done. Can we move on now? Thank you.
Excellent. As you were. And so the rest of the movie essentially, so like he kills this guy off, but the rest of the movie is essentially like basically a mix between the Miles character kind of trying to woo the token female worker within the company.
I thought she was the blonde girl in Night Court. But it's not her. But it looks a lot like her. Yeah.
Not sure on that one.
But she has the classic 80s look where there's just a lot of product in the hair.
Yeah, that's right.
The hair and the hair's shaped in a certain very 80s way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a bit of... Again, I thought maybe she was the female lead because they end up at some point going out to dinner and...
Yeah, that's right.
He ends up seducing her.
Yeah.
Or you could tell that she figures, I can get in here if I fuck the boss.
Yes.
And then he beats her up.
Yeah. Essentially, that's right. And so, it's a pretty fucked up point in the movie, and also, just to tap into what you were saying there, part of the failing of this movie is that it's hard to connect with a character that is his yin and to the yang, you know? It's like, who is his polar opposite? Trying to feed him, and they try and use the Reverend character, Reverend Penny, played by Paul Sorvino, as
Mira Sorvino's dad.
Yeah, and also, I'm going to just mention that he also played Paul Ciccirio in Goodfellas.
Yeah.
It was an awesome film, and that's what I know him from. But yes, he probably is the only character that brings any sense of gravitas to the film. But yeah, like like even then, like he's quite subdued, and he kind of is oscillating, or is trying to hypothetically kind of work through what's going on with Miles. Like he's probably the only one that's really going, yeah, there's something not quite right there. What's going on? And he's the one that kind of bandies around the idea that this guy's come back without a soul. And so he kind of leads the investigation, but like it only kind of leads him to confront the guy, and then Miles basically tries to run him over with a car.
He locks his coat into the car door.
Yeah, that's right.
And drives off with him. Which is like, if something like that happens, yeah, you can't get out of it. I mean, Savino's a big dude, so if it was like someone like you and me,
yeah,
I would have just gotten out of the coat.
Yeah, that's right.
The guy's about to take off. But yeah, he literally drags him along the road, turns around, runs him over.
Yeah.
Which, okay. But he ends up looking remarkably okay for somebody who's had a car smash into him.
Yeah, I know there's that shot of him kind
50
of
miles an hour.
Yeah. And then he ends up, obviously getting taken to hospital. And you're like, so, hold on, so who is going to be the one to win this guy over and knock him out? Because then we kind of go back to the scene in the house, and then he does the more pervy stuff with the stepsister, who comes home, right? It's cold. She comes home. There's a fire. The only fire that's working in like the biggest kind of fireplace in humankind in the lounge room, and you presume in pitch darkness, but the Miles character's sitting there. But she comes in and she takes off her coat, and she's wearing like a leotard of some kind. And I'm like, where the fuck is she doing? And why is that the only thing she's wearing?
Jazzercise class.
Huh?
Jazzercise was big back then, dude. She was doing jazzercise.
But it's cold outside.
She's come from jazzercise class. Didn't have time to change.
Gotta get home. No time to get dressed. I just thought that was really odd. And anyway, there was a moment for him to be a bit pervy and try and kind of force himself on her. And then who turns up but Mum? Bit bad Mum. Who...
Cop block.
Yeah, like, comes and basically shoots him.
Read the room, Mum.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Get out of here, Mum. But she kind of, shoots him in the chest. But there's a point before that, though. She doesn't shoot him at this point, though, does she? She kind of basically, she disappears.
She locks him.
And he goes and tries to find her, and she locks him in the freezer.
So is this supposed to be a homage to
to what?
Nicholson?
Oh, The Shining.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. It was a weird moment for me. Like, anyway, locks him in and then calls the police and then
calls the cops.
Yeah.
And you see his body and he's frozen.
He's frozen.
Again, I have to admit, I didn't actually wash the dishes. I had to wash the dishes at this point, so I missed a huge chunk of this film. So I come back to see the cops come in, and see his frozen body, and for a second I thought, this Miles has been an imposter. He killed the original Miles and stuck him in a freezer all this time. And this other Miles is an imposter. And I thought, twist. That's kind of interesting. Then I realized, no, it's the same Miles. He's just...
You thought Body Snatcher's moment.
Yeah, I honestly thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought, maybe this film's worth rewinding, looking at it, because I thought, that's kind of a twist.
No.
It suddenly got interesting. Yeah. But, no, it's him playing possum, basically. He's pretending to be dead.
Exactly. And then, and so he attacks the cop, and then the mum ends up having to shoot Simon and kill him.
Yes. Not before he does the, I'm alive, I'm dead thing.
I'm alive, but I'm dead. But I'm alive again. No. Wait, sorry, I am actually dead.
Yeah, I'm dead. Yes, I'm dead.
I am actually dead this time. So, and then like the final scene is back at the cryogenics. Oh no, just before that is the hospital scene where we have the mother character asking if the Reverend will pull through, and they said we just don't know. We just cannot tell. We cannot tell at this point. And she said, "Well, what can I do? Is there anything I can do?" And the guy just says, "Pray." So kind of alluding to that, we cannot do God's will. Only God couldn't act out his will, essentially. And then the final scene is back at the cryogenics facility where the alarm goes off again, and all the storage tanks kind of begin to thaw. With more of these, so kind of alluding to the fact that, you know, we may have dealt with one Mars, but we're going to now have many of these kind of soulless people coming back.
Miles and miles of soulless people.
Miles and miles of soulless people, yes. But yeah, and that's how we bow out.
That's how it ends.
Yeah.
You think they would have, you know, after the first breakdown, like, just trying to double check that the facility is working correctly, but apparently it's not.
Yeah. It's like, no, it's fine. What was the problem? So that's the upshot of it. So, final thoughts on the movie itself?
I didn't really give it a chance. It's a TV movie. It's you know, a good film to be watching. You see sort of things like this, and you think, a career in film and television, whether you're a filmmaker or an actor or producer or cinematographer, can be a day job.
Yeah.
Because you're just churning out stuff that's just not memorable, but you're working. And you know, which there is an industry in America where it can be like that, where you can, and so that's the closest you can have to an industry where it's 9 to 5, I guess. Movie of the week, and these daytime movies are being churned out, where, you know, which would be kind of nice, I guess. But in terms of the quality of the film as a standout piece of art, no. You know, it falls apart. You know, there's no. The only antagonist is a bad guy. He's the bad guy, so who's the good guy?
Right, that's right. And I've got to say, I struggle with even recommending this to Wes Craven fans who may not have put this one before. Unlike, as I said, Deadly Blessing and even Summer of Fear in its respects, had something that was integral to Craven's kind of visual eye, or something that kind of tapped into what made him great in other movies. Correcto, whereas this it was soulless.
I see what you did there.
Which was interesting. I mean, like, you look at IMDb and they've got it at 4.5%, and Rotten Tomatoes is 14%, I think, off the top of my head. So it's not really kind of reviewed highly, and kind of have to fall in line with that kind of consensus. It's a pretty forgettable movie in my book, but you know, it's part of the canon of Wes Craven's work thus far, and as we will continue to talk about his other movies down the track, we'll kind of see how it sits, you know, in line with the rest of his movies as well. My hunch is that it'll be one of the more forgettable ones, and kind of at the lower end of the barometer. I don't know.
Scale.
As far as things go with these movies, but and did you want to add anything else to that, Mr. Yee?
Not really.
No.
I honestly thought we'd gone through all these films before, and apparently he's made a buttload more, and these are the bad ones. Yay!
Not so much. There are
how many of the Nightmare films did he direct?
2.
And he's executive producer for the rest, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's right. So he basically did the first one also, and then Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is where satire starts to play.
Really did come in, right, which is what he wanted to do.
So,
I mean, I do feel for the guy. I mean, I get, like, you know, like we talked about with Chappie. Chappie's, as a feature film guy, horror films, and it's not his main love. Like, he loves horror films, but he wants to do everything else too, obviously. And he's talented enough to do that, but I kind of get you go where the work is and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure he's good enough to do other areas of drama and whatever that he wants to. But for now, he's doing horror films, and TV-wise, he does the science fiction stuff with Doctor Who and which you know me, that'd be it. If I had that, that's my life achieved. There's nothing else to do now but retire. But you know, you get it. Like it's that you're always finding in our industry, whether you're behind the scenes or in front of the camera, fighting that edge of being pigeonholed versus doing everything you want to do. And you know, some people love being pigeonholed. Like I said, like for me, if I did nothing but sci-fi and horror, Yeah, we're all good here.
Yeah.
At least it is. I do feel for Wes when you point out that, you want your break, but he wanted to do other things. But he was very good at doing the thing he did in horror. So
that's the thing, and coming back to Scream as well, like he just turned that genre on its head when that came out. And then we get a whole series of copycat kind of movies of the time. With even Halloween H2O was embedded within that kind of that same kind of world. I mean, it helps that Kevin Williamson was the screenwriter on both of them, but also Urban Legends and a bunch of other movies. I Know What You Did Last Summer. All those kind of things that kind of came out around that time frame. Essentially, kind of just basically the 90s was that era, and that kind of horror movies were being made, and Craven kind of redid that again slightly. But it'll be interesting to see if, when we come to our final discussions on Wes Craven's movie, which we're not going to be able to get to in this current season, but when we finally do and look back, my hunch is that I'm going to answer that question now, but my hunch is that I think A Nightmare on Elm Street will always be his defining movie. I think there's a lot about that, the ingredients and chemistry that went with that.
It was a game changer.
Yeah, it was, and it was hard to shift away from that once he'd made that kind of a movie. But let's see. Well, we will continue that journey down the track. But until then, I think we'll bow out on this current podcast. And thanks again for offering your thoughts on this, Anthony Big Cheese. And I'm your host, Saul Muerte. Please kind of tune in for further discussions on Wes Craven's nightmare years. Until then, goodbye.
See you, bye.
You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Music supplied by Peter Nezik. For more discussions or podcasts, head over to surgeonsofhorror.com or head over to our Facebook and Twitter sites for the latest news and updates.